Hello, everyone, and welcome to this brand new and exclusive video series in collaboration with Apex Logistics. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I am the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, as well as the founder of Blended Podcast and the Blended Pledge. And I'm excited to be partnering up with Apex once again. We've worked together on quite a few interesting projects over the years, and it's an honor to host this latest series. Over the next 4 episodes, we're going to take a closer look at Apex with a focus on 4 of their key verticals: e-commerce, health and pharma, high tech, and industrial. We'll be diving into each area, tackling key issues around the state of the market, supply chain transformation and mindset, COVID challenges and disruptions, post-COVID learnings and solutions, and so much more. So today in episode 1, we'll be focusing on e-commerce, and I'm joined by Steve Story, EVP of Customs and International Trade at Apex, to talk more about the unprecedented growth we've seen over the last year or so in e-commerce, the impact it's had on business and the wider supply chain, predictions for the future, and exactly how Apex is supporting their clients through these volatile times. E-commerce has been rising steadily over the last few years, but we've seen some big changes recently because of COVID. The closure of bricks and mortar stores and people being largely stuck indoors with no other means to purchase has led to a surge in e-commerce and accelerated digital transformation. So before we dive more specifically into Apex offering, let's talk a little bit about that. So Steve, welcome to this episode. So what have you seen from your perspective and that of your clients? Where was everybody pre-COVID? Where are they now? And what changes have you seen over the last 18 months?
Well, not only the last 18 months, but I've been doing this since 2014, back when the exemption was only $200. You know, it got raised to $800 in 2016. And then with the advent of the new automation of the entries, well, as everybody knows, it's exploded, right? It is the future.
Right.
You know, you don't need to go to a brick and mortar store anymore. You can order everything online. As an example, back in 2017, there was 332 million e-commerce clearance entries, shipments. In 2020, we went up to 712.8 million.
Wow, that's an incredible difference. Holy moly.
And just this year, up till June of 2021, Customs has processed 529 million just the first 6 months of 2021.
Wow.
So it is the future. You know, we participate in the 321 data pilot. We're one of the pilot companies. And like I said, I've been doing this since 2014. So there's been a ton of changes. COVID has just increased the shipments dramatically.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that we're keeping you very, very, very busy with all of our purchases.
Everybody orders online. Everybody.
They do.
Everybody.
Yeah.
So,
do you have a real life example that you can share from one of your e-commerce clients about how they've sort of increased or how it's affected their business with you?
well, we're seeing a shift with several clients, and I see this as the future of fulfilling from origin. You don't need to stock merchandise in a distribution center in the United States when you can let your supplier or your distribution vendor, your manufacturer, fulfill those shipments directly from origin. 3 to 5 days. It can be from origin in China, origin in India, Europe, right in your mailbox, 3 to 5 days.
Wow.
So that's I call it the e-commerce paradigm shift. Because if you think about stock and merchandise in the United States, you're paying real estate taxes, you're paying inventory taxes, overhead for the building, on and on and on, insurance. So when you can cut those costs out and you can take advantage of the duty-free shipping, that's the shift that I see. That's the biggest difference that I see where we're moving to.
Well, and that's a really good point. A lot of people don't necessarily take into account what we have as far as our trade agreements, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so if you're bringing it in as a large shipment or you're bringing it in as a single shipment, it's the same.
Correct. And you're having to pay duty. And if it's coming from China, you got the Section 301 duties.
Right.
So with the Section 321 exemption, there is no Section 301 duties. So you can cut anywhere up from 7 to 25% off that cost.
Absolutely, which is huge for a lot of companies right now, especially with all of the costs rising, right? Like all of the costs have been rising on the ocean freight side. And so if you're going to bring, a container full of goods just to stick into inventory, you're right. I think this new shift in what we're seeing in e-commerce and being able to fulfill those orders straight from origin could really save time and a lot of money.
Ton of money.
Which is amazing, amazing. And that's what everybody needs to hear right now. So I think, with the rise in e-commerce that we've just talked about, it's demanded a high level of agility, right? For all points in the chain to be able to continue to problem solve and adapt as the crisis keeps moving the goalposts. I know that Apex has been very passionate and committed to being a trusted partners for your clients. So what has that journey been like for you? Because I imagine you also had to pivot to a certain extent to meet some of those ever increasing e-commerce shipping needs.
We're not only a trusted partner with our clients, but a trusted partner with customers.
Yeah.
Okay. We've really refined this. We've got a best practice down. We provide all our clients with what are the prohibitions? What can you not ship, right? You can't ship pheasant feathers that are in a woman's hat. That's regulated by Fish and Wildlife. You can't have abalone shell buttons on a men's shirt. That's regulated by Fish and Wildlife. So what can you and cannot ship? And then you've got the PGA considerations, the participating government agencies, right? FDA, Fish and Wildlife. There's 48 agencies that regulate imports, and customs enforces the laws of all 48. So we've got a list of HTS numbers of what you can and cannot ship, and what will the PGAs permit for entry. So we refined the process down to where we know we've got the best practice. We really do on what you can and cannot ship. So I suppose that's how we've really refined things over the last 3 or 4 years.
And that's so true. I'm glad that you brought that up because it's not just a trusted partner with your clients, it's also the other government bodies that you are dealing with on a regular basis to make sure that your clients' shipments are moving through seamlessly. So can you walk us through a bit of that, what that conversation looks like with a client that does want to ship something, like a woman's hat with a feather on it, and you're kind of like, no, you can't really do that. And what are the ways around it? Do you give them examples and what else they can do?
Well, sure. We do an API, automated program interface, with the client, so we can get the shipments electronically. But before that, we set them up to where we review all your merchandise. What do you want to ship? And then we advise, here's the things that are not eligible for Section 321. So once those are qualified, we set up an API. We originate a manifest of all the shipments that are going to be on the aircraft. Transmit that manifest. We transmit ACAS, the Air Cargo Advanced Screening. It's a subset of the manifest data. And then we usually have either pre-release or day of arrival release. If in customs, we'll do their selectivity to select shipments for exam. We'll extract those few shipments out of the consolidation, present those to customs. Everything else is released. Then we hand it over to the last mile provider, which could be either the Postal Service, UPS, FedEx Freight, or one of the other postage resellers, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of options with being able to ship this. And I'm glad to say I'm really proud that by working with customs in the 321 data pilot, by refining the process and working with customs in each of the 8 ports that we do this at, our exam ratio is less than 0.02%.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, and that just goes to show you that Apex not only partners with their customer, but also partners with the government associations that you need to be able to have an efficient supply chain. When you're talking about e-commerce, I mean, e-commerce is all about customer experience, right? Getting that product to them. And if you're eliminating a lot of the stops along the supply chain and being able to really refine that and get it to the customer really a lot faster than your competition, I mean, you've got a leg up, that's for sure. So let's, I'm sure there's a lot of businesses out there. They're listening to this who are looking to scale up, looking to onboard more robust and future-proof partners. And there's some key information they're going to be looking for. So let's get into a little bit of those technicalities that you just brushed up on. just now. So how many gateways can Apex service for Section 321 and ET 86 clearances?
We currently do the 8 major gateways: Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Dallas, New York, Miami, and we can also, and Newark and Cincinnati.
And what does that exactly mean for your e-commerce clients?
They can pick the gateway that is closest to their customer to shorten the transportation time as well as the customs release time. So our clients separate their consolidations into East Coast clients go to New York, Cincinnati, Miami, Newark. West Coast, we clear in LA, San Francisco. Midwest, Chicago, Dallas. So it cuts that transportation time down considerably.
Absolutely. And among those gateways that you mentioned, which one can expect like the fastest clearance and maybe the least exam ratios? Is that something that people should be worried about when they're thinking about the gateways that they want to be going through?
No, not actually, Sarah, because that would be port shopping and we don't do that. So with the entry type 86, it's an ABI, automated broker interface, automated release. So customs processes them the same in every port.
Got it. Okay, that's good to know because I think, everybody's looking at different gateways and like you said, they're looking at how much quicker can we get it to our clients and which gateways we need to do that from. And it sounds like everything works the same at each gateway, so that's great. So there's a lot of businesses getting stuck in some of those gateways. What kind of volume can Apex process in each gateway per day?
We don't really have a limit. We don't really have a limit. These days, the entry processing is not as challenging as transportation. Getting flights into gateways. With COVID, it's canceling flights. All the airlines are canceling flights. Crew members are having to be quarantined for 5 to 7 days now. Like, for example, Cathay Pacific canceled all their cargo flights for last week.
Wow.
So it's the transportation now, it's getting to the gateway that has kind of become the challenge, and getting lift because a lot of the airlines are cutting back their cargo only flights and cutting back their capacity on passenger flights.
Absolutely. And what about if a customer uses another provider for their air or ocean freight? Can they work with Apex to just do the clearance, or do they need to do everything with you? I mean, there's obviously a benefit for doing everything with Apex. So let's talk a little bit about that.
A client can use their own transportation if they've got good rates with an airline or with a steamship line. They're welcome to use their own rates, and then we handle just the airline recovery, steamship recovery, clearance, hand over to the last mile provider. And obviously we can handle the transportation part as well. I mean, we have over almost 200 charters a month into Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Columbus, and Lockbourne. So there are a lot of options.
Absolutely. But it sounds like with 200 charters a month, I mean, who wants to work with anybody else? That sounds like you've kind of got those gateways covered, regardless of whether, a CP, like you just said, goes down. You've got a lot of different options.
We like to think so. That's why we are the 7th largest in the world.
Absolutely. And what about Amazon FBA? I know there's a lot of people in the audience that obviously sell through Amazon. I mean, Amazon, who doesn't sell through Amazon? And sometimes they are fulfilling that themselves. Sometimes they're going through the FBA program. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? How do you work with your customers who are working with Amazon, either as an independent supplier or through their FBA program?
Well, there's 2 ways you can do FBA. One is obviously bringing in pay duty. Formal entry, right? But Section 321 exemption is eligible for Amazon FBA from a ruling that I got 2 years ago from Customs that permits that. It took me 3 years to get that ruling finally passed. But yes, you can do up to $800 per Amazon FBA location per day. So it's good for B2B, B2C, exactly. Or other types of fulfillment as well, not just Amazon.
Well, and it sounds like, you really went to bat for your clients when you were able to get that ruling.
Well, I see this as the future, and we got so many requests about it that we went forth and challenged customs on the legality and the interpretation of the exemption, and thankfully they agreed with us.
I love that. Taking that challenge that your customers are having by the horns and really going in front of the courts and really pleading the case on behalf of your customers. And now there's a whole lot of people that should be really thanking you for that, because I'm sure it's saving them a lot of money and a lot of time. But let's talk about returns, because this is one of the biggest challenges being thrown up by the rise in e-commerce right now. How are returns handled for shipments with Apex? Like traditionally with e-commerce, like you said, the product is being brought into inventory and then it's being shipped out to the end consumer, that specific shipment. Now, if we're dealing with overseas and they're shipping it direct to consumer, how do these returns work? How are you guys handling that for your customers?
Couple of different options. We can show, we do that during the setup process with the e-commerce marketplace or the client. First option is we show Apex as the return label. You can return it to one of our gateways.
Huh.
So if the consignee refuses it, maybe it's a vacant lot, the address changed, whatever, it'll be returned to one of our gateways based on the address on the label. The other way is if the client wants their own warehouse or a contracted warehouse to have the return shipped to, we'll show that address as the return on the label. It'll get returned to that central point.
That is a great option. And especially if it's coming from origin and there's already a return label in there and it goes to Apex, the customer doesn't even have to touch the shipment.
Correct. And then we'll consolidate all the returns, and then the client will advise us what they want us to do. Ship them back once a month, once a quarter, sell at auction or whatever.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that option. And what about HTS codes? Do customers really need to provide you with that 10-digit HTS code, or are you able to find that for them? Because a lot of customers, right, especially when we're dealing in e-commerce, they don't necessarily know what an HTS number is, but they do have a list of the products that they have either coming into the country or that they're selling. So what does that process look like, and do you help them with that?
That is on the front end when we set the client up. Now, there's two forms of release. Remember, there's manifest release, no HTS number required, average 3 to 5 days release time.
Okay.
If you want expedited release, we use ABI and entry type 86. HTS number is required. So if the client can't provide those, then we have staff that will classify all that merchandise on the front end. And then once it's classified, they're free to ship whenever they want to.
Great. That's really awesome. Thanks so much, Steve. That was, such a thorough dive into what customers can really expect from your e-commerce solutions. And I think that will give a lot of businesses plenty to get their teeth into and really think about when it comes to their e-commerce business. So let's look to the future. Although the rate of growth in e-commerce will likely slow down maybe a little from the artificial boom we've seen because of COVID, we're still going to be looking at steady market growth, right? So what do you think we'll see from the market in the next few years?
I don't think we're going to see a slowdown at all. I think it's going to keep growing. Again, it's a paradigm shift, fulfilling from origin versus fulfilling in the United States. Now, anybody that wants Amazon Prime, you got to fulfill from the States. But my experience has been when I order online, I'm satisfied with 3 to 5 days it takes to get it to me. So I don't see any slowdown. I think it is the future. It's going to keep growing and growing. And some of the things that we might see in the future is Section 321 from a foreign trade zone. That's a possibility as well. That I see that as coming about as a real possibility.
So talk to us a little bit about that. What does that mean for the audience? You
would be able to fulfill orders and get the Section 321 duty-free exemption for merchandise being entered out of a foreign trade zone. So that way you could fulfill from the United States, but it would have to be within an FTZ. Now, right now, Customs doesn't permit that. We get down to the definition of entered versus admitted. So I do see that coming about. There's a couple associations that are pushing for that. So we'll see what the future holds.
Awesome. And what would that mean for like a client of yours or somebody in e-commerce? What would that mean exactly for them? Would they be saving money? Would they be able to defer duty? What does that mean?
Well, by fulfilling from an FTZ in the United States, yes, you'd be saving on all the duty, but it would allow you to sort of act like an Amazon Prime from the States, same day,
Awesome.
same day shipment. So,
Awesome.
um,
I love that. So I think the audience right now needs to keep an eye on that and keep in contact with Steve for when that's going to come available, and that'll put you ahead of the competition. So what are Apex's key areas of focus to help their customers meet that ever-changing and growing e-commerce need?
we're looking to provide an end-to-end solution. We have clients that have, sourced from foreign countries. And if you pick Vietnam, for example, they might have 2 or 3 manufacturers in Vietnam. We're looking to provide an end-to-end solution where we can consolidate those shipments, those orders, online orders at origin, and prepare the consolidation from origin to one of our gateways. Clear it, it shows up in your mailbox. So
Amazing.
right, so right now, we're having to deal with individual manufacturers. And so we want to be a 3PL at origin to consolidate all those orders on a daily basis and really pass those savings on to not only our clients, but consumers.
So Steve, tell me about your trade advocacy work.
So Apex is very big, and uh, we think it's important to help regulatory authorities, customs, Congress, senators, um, interpret how the Section 321 exemption should be utilized. So customs is coming about. There's going to be a Mod Act 2022 that is coming out in a proposed Federal Register notice, and that will affect how e-commerce transactions are processed. Customs is asking for more and more data. Um, Obviously, they're looking for intellectual property rights violations or bad actors, forced labor, that kind of thing. So we participate in that with a lot of trade associations to hopefully get our input in as well. And then there's some other congressional representatives who are actually looking to lower the de minimis from $800 down to $7.
Wow.
The same as what China is. Of course, we're against that. We think it's working just fine the way it is. But so we work with senators, congressmen, all the trade associations. I also chair the e-commerce committee of the Trade Support Network with a lot of my peers and professionals who we provide input directly to customs on the Mod Act. Is it reasonable for what you're proposing or not? Is it realistic? And then hopefully we can really guide the staffers of the congressmen and senators to point them in the right direction of, is the proposed legislation realistic or not?
Yeah, well, and think about being a small to mid-sized business, not really having a voice necessarily, but being partnered with Apex, they would be able to have a voice because they'd be able to give you their feedback and you'd be able to take it to those associations or to those meetings and really have your customers be heard.
Yes, yes. We think that's very valuable and very important.
Absolutely. And all of that just makes sense. And there's a lot to think about in this discussion. I mean, it's a really exciting time. This growth in e-commerce brings with it so many possibilities and opportunities. But as across many areas of supply chain, COVID has proved that we still have a bit of work to do getting our houses in order before we're fully prepared to step into that next phase. But what you're doing at Apex is fantastic because as I always say, collaboration is the future of business. We can't do it all. We need to connect with partners who are experts in what they do and can help us move more quickly to where we need to be. So knowing that there's a partner like Apex out there who are really dedicated to bringing the best solutions and driving that competitive advantage for their customers is really a game changer. So thank you so much, Steve, for joining me today and giving us so much insight into the world of e-commerce and what Apex is doing. And I'm really looking forward to finding out more. In episode 2, we're going to be diving into the health and pharma vertical to discover more about Apex and exactly how they're helping their customers to navigate a tricky industry and to create strategies that keep their supply chain operations compliant, secure, and in control. Thank you again, Steve.
Thank you for having me.
See everybody next time.